Welcome back to VibeCode. In episode 1, we explored real-world use cases in software delivery across refactoring, automated testing, and documentation. In this episode, we're exploring how organizations can stay ahead of the rapid evolution of AI-augmented coding. There is so much changing so quickly that it's no longer enough just to adopt AI tools. Teams need to be able to anticipate what is coming next. So to help us break this down, I'm joined by Brian Shires, who has been working closely with teams that are navigating the shift. Thank you for being here, Brian.
Thanks, Jamie. It's an exciting time to be here. AI is not just accelerating our solution development; it's reshaping how we think about software development as a whole. Look forward to this conversation today.
You bet. So to start us off, how would you describe the pace of change in AI-augmented coding right now, and what is evolving specifically the fastest?
Well, can we say faster than fast? Joking aside, if you look back not that long ago, we've gone from simple autocomplete to systems that are multi-step, that can plan, can reason, can execute an entire workflow. The speed of the change is really staggering. What was cutting edge even 6 months ago kind of feels basic today. This is exponential change. You have to keep asking yourself to reevaluate the outcomes even from a few months ago. What was it possible then? Very well, it might have changed. You got to go back to it. So don't rest on those assumptions, and expect change. And what you learned yesterday might need to be relearned again tomorrow.
Yeah, great. And I think we'll talk a lot more about that later in the episode. And I think it's ground ourselves in some common language, I think, because we see the conversation heavily leaning towards agents and agentic workflow. I'd love if you could provide a bit of an overview in your perspective of what you think the difference is between an assistant, an agent, and like an agentic system.
Well, I kind of think of that as an assistant, like that was a singular entity kind of trying to do everything. And with agents, really, I think of it as maybe a team of virtual specialists. And if I think of that agentic approach, it's going to be like coordinating a project team, us planning and coding and validating. And the difference here is we've gone from maybe I had to micromanage those things to rather that the humans are there to coach those agents. And for us, like I think of the different personas and that are involved in solution architecting the solution, and the agent can represent each of those personas, from the security compliance expert to architecture design expert, down to like an accessibility expert. And I can actually bring all this together and get all the points of view with an agentic architecture that stitches, and I'm at the ready to take feedback and guide those along the way.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So instead of just being a single repetitive version of itself, you actually have all different perspectives that can communicate together and resolve a problem together.
Yeah, and then each agent or each persona in the flow has unique context and brings unique value to that. And then me as the human, all of this can kind of coordinate and have the suggestions from the team, the virtual team that I'm used to working with.
Oh yeah, so speaking of team, that makes a great segue to the next conversation I'd like to start having, is as we think about the human impact and how this changes roles specifically on the developer side, how is this changing what developers do day to day?
I think I would describe it as an evolution for the activities, and the evolution is about becoming someone who can really guide and provide the right context and inputs along the way, and really is a change of altitude from being very deeply focused on individual components of knowing exactly how to write an algorithm to having perspective of the larger solution. But the kind of unique skill that is developing and an evolving skill is how do I keep the system, the agent or AI, grounded with the right inputs and right context, so that it's not wandering off and proposing interesting but wildly maybe off-target solutions.
Yeah, interesting. I think traditionally we've seen developers find their niches in, database or SaaS, PaaS, cloud security, whatever. And I think what we're starting to see the trend is everyone, as you say, is they're changing their altitude, they're using their knowledge and then assembling more broadly useful solutions. So as you think about that, do you see developers becoming more leaning towards more of the architecture as they change the altitude? Are they looking at, using that knowledge of their experience and bringing quality and some of the change management to that as well?
Yeah, and thank you. Question is exactly what was on my mind. 100% you're seeing that shift, and those developers are acting more and more developers are acting like system architects and those quality stewards. So I'm thinking of the entire solution, and they're really about now designing the guardrails to ensure that the AI generated code, it meets kind of all the compliance and requirements and performance standards. And so that set of skills is shifting for developer. It is still important. They understand what the deliverable is, what that generated code is, but it's much more about critical thinking. I think that's a key differentiator here. It's not being the fastest to be able to code a given procedure, but rather what is the outcome, and how do I want to actually approach something, and giving that right context and the right inputs. And where we've seen this work most easily is where we have an opportunity to build a net new solution, a greenfield solution, if you will. And that's been really rapid progress there. It's because it's a little more challenging. I think it pushes takes a more seasoned developer to think about using that in integrating changes into legacy systems. It takes a lot more input, takes a lot more context, takes a lot more understanding to make sure that the system is staying on target and staying in the guide rails.
That's a really good differentiation actually between net new code, where AI is kind of primarily placed to be able to just generate whatever you need, versus deeply understanding that came before it and making sure it keeps functioning.
Manage all the problems that were there before. You had to figure out how to smooth over it without just starting over.
Totally. And I think one thing that we as an organization have looked at is everyone has these expertise that they've brought with them over the years of their experience, but what if you could provide those expertise to everybody? So, thinking of code review agents, I'm not a security expert, but if I'm tapping away at a project and I put it through a code review agent, the security expert's code review skills would be reviewing my code, and that person could scale a lot more broadly across the organization. So more people can do more things with the safety net, as you said, of the regulation, the requirements, and all the rest of it that sits under it to keep watch of it. So that's a really good point. I like that. So thinking of that, the way you build the business, and specifically, this is quite deep. So we're going in already. There's we think about beyond the technology and the organization typically need the right culture. How do we think about a healthy culture as an organization when they start thinking about AI adoption?
I think one thing is the culture has to get past maybe the first reaction a lot of people have is oh, it's a competitor, it's a replacement. But ultimately, the good culture point you want to get to is people are viewing this as a companion, and the overall culture needs to reward that. Hey, everybody, be curious. Everybody, be trying this, and ultimately, in Blue Arm's culture, it's really shifted to be very transparent. These weekly sharing sessions where we're all being, we're on the same page. We're learning together. We're learn from others and see where ideas might exist in the broader team. And we've actually seen that those get-togethers have actually uncovered oh, I didn't think about that solution in this way, and quickly helped the team pivot and change how they were trying to address a problem. So it's my companion, and ultimately I've got to always be experimenting with this, and making sure that leadership all the way to the practitioners have that mentality and know that we're all learning together.
Yeah, and as somebody who's participated in AI Fridays, kind of it's a great thing for an organization to do, and I do like the carrot first approach for this, which is first of all, acknowledging differences of everybody, because we've said before, a lot of developers and a lot of engineers, a lot of PMs, and they all have different skill sets. And there is a risk with AI of everybody becoming this, like cell phones, back in the day, Android phones, flip phones, iOS phones, are all different. And now they've all become the same monolithic, round cornered, uniform body, etc. But AI could present that risk and problem. Whereas what I like what Valorem are doing is everybody's encouraged to go off into their own specialties and really push AI to see what it can do with their lens. So whether it's a delivery person doing resourcing, whether it's a finance person looking at reporting, whether it could be somebody managing HR or CRM or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just figuring out the best ways to use AI within that group. And there's been really great some great things being uncovered amongst that too. So
I love that cross discipline.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, you need to hear all points of view.
Totally. Okay, so given how easy it is to create something and spin something up, and like we've been doing in the AI Fridays, and just throw up a dashboard or throw up whatever, the bar of throwaway work, I think, has completely changed. You can just knock something up for a UI and show it to somebody and see if they like it. So how do you think, how do we think about experimentation? And what does a good experimentation look like in an organization?
I think it's important to be totally Wild West and be structured about this. Like, first and foremost, like, where are you doing this? Beginning in sandbox environments, as you called out, like, use this to quickly build prototypes and learn and react. That's an important piece of this, like ensuring you kind of know that like this may or may not be the right solution, but I'm going to experiment with this. And then making sure as you start to further along the journey, having clear goals of where are you trying to get to? And then, of course, kind of without saying, like, make sure that the ethical guidelines for AI are always considered, like, making sure that like either that's implemented or, and you're always asking yourself, what are you trying to do? And then the other important piece here is for an experimentation is I created a solution. I have something that I think is good. Using AI to actually play that back, like validate things for me. Did it really meet the business goal? Yeah. Does it really meet security and compliance checks? You can use AI in the inverse, not just create the thing, but like, hey, double check this, double check your own work. Perhaps actually try that against different models too. So just have that one perspective, you have a few different perspectives, ask a few different ways.
Totally. That's my favorite prompt finish is explain the task back to me so I know you understand the assignment. And then you can quickly pick up some issues, you could pick up some things you've missed or some assumptions that the LLM has made, because it's obviously only a predictive engine, so it's going to have caught or guessed and filled blanks sometimes. So as we think about those tools and we think about the development of like the culture and the organization, given stuff is changing so fast, like NCP is now like the gold standard, right? We moved, the semantic kernel just came out, I don't know what, like 6 months ago, and now it's moved to agentic framework already. And like, it's just moving so fast. So given how fast things are moving and organizations that haven't yet started, I mean, I see two ends of the spectrum, organizations that have started and it's out of date and they're having to rethink stuff, or they're waiting to put the toe in the water. Like, how do you think about that, but whilst remaining agile with all the changes?
Yeah, it's tough because like you can always be on the sideline waiting for like, I'm waiting for this to settle. Like seemingly there isn't a settle point in the foreseeable future. You have to be careful not to just chase the latest model and like more about the core piece. Like, does it meet my needs? Does it meet my workflow? Does it meet my compliance needs? Does it fit into my long-term strategy? Does it fit in where my data is at? Does it fit my my platform? I think that those are important pieces. Like, there will always be something new, and avoiding like either sitting on the sideline or continually restarting, like enabling yourself to get going. And most importantly, does it meet your tooling, security requirements, and ultimately with all these tools, making sure you're making the selection of a thing that you believe is actually scalable and durable, or to run your solution. Because otherwise you can kind of always hit the reset button and be chasing the model or latest tooling set.
I had someone that they talk about, and as you talk about building like or specifically picking a model or whatever. Instead of building an agent, organizations need to think about building the kitchen so that people can build agents that are relevant to their roles, which is kind of interesting. And so, can I build an agent in my organization, or can I? Do I have to request an agent through the admins or whatever build it? And so, as I think about we come back to this. I mean, how many times have we been through this cycle? The maturity model is the thing that we always come back to. So, as we look at the maturity modeling of AI as a whole, where do you think about readiness and preparedness for that? Ignoring what AI is it's called a bubble of AI, right?
I guess in practice, like the first maturity of any organization is making sure that teams are ready to kind of collaborate, and that you have organizational buy-in, and that can include organizational or leadership principles bought in, team principles, and then like an approach for implementation. On an organizational side, that's making sure that the company is ready to embrace AI, and you have that expectation that teams are experimenting and learning, and leadership is really planning for this. And then the teams themselves with that like air cover can know that how am I going to fit this AI component, or how can I make my product or my service better with AI, not just like starting from scratch. And then of course at a tactical level, making sure across the board those teams are well supported and don't have to continually always think that the policies and guidelines are put in place, and keep them kind of safeguarded, and kind of have the right guardrails there to avoid mistakes right from the beginning of like what is approved by your organization, and not make everybody kind of revisit all the same questions.
Yeah. And I think as we think about the sheer diversity and how varied organizations are from group to group, the one thing that Valorum have, I'm gonna say it's a specifically unique approach, but it's definitely a more broad approach in that you've got your data that AI can then read and reason over, and then you've got your tools which AI can then utilize and then enact. So understanding and action, those tools may be spread vastly and the data may be spread vastly, but thinking about things like MCPs and Fabric, etc., to make that readiness has certainly helped. So as we talked about leveling up in terms of altitude for developers, what about the organizational level? What are the skill sets and the skills that organizations should be looking for, and what should therefore developers be looking at in terms of skill sets to stay on the bleeding edge, or staying up to date? And we're not short of information. It's almost a full-time job to stay informed on AI these days.
Yeah, I think that a few things the organization and the resources can expect. Going back to like earlier in the conversation, those developing those skills that help them be good at critical thinking. The specific technology will continue to evolve. There is a kind of foundational element that, yes, that's expected, and I should be learning. But the new muscle, if you will, to work on is that critical thinking, and how do I help maintain the context and help the systems kind of understand my intent. But I think it's definitely a challenging time to they can say, let's just go take this one training class or learn this one technology, because yes, that's quickly evolving.
Yeah, and AI is not going away anytime soon, and so you can either evolve and embrace it and then improve your scale and capability by using it, or I think there'll be people that do use it and have turned to leverage AI that will be covering a lot more ground. And so as we think of the roles that that first come to mind, like DevOps or testing or QA, that would become in a group of agents, And I'm sure there is a bit of fear about what that looks like for the future of those folks. But how do we think about those roles and how they can adapt and, as you say, expect the change or embrace the change?
Yeah, I think those roles, like on the surface, you go back to you could view it as a replacement, but ultimately, I now have a companion. If I'm a really good QA tester, I might actually be very good at using an agent to help generate the code. Like, I already know what the outcomes. I know what the patterns of good look like. I know what the business outcomes are. So it's actually an opportunity for resources to think about moving outside of a singular lane. And
Yep.
we talked about that. Those developers, maybe even those testers, are moving to more of an architect role where they have a broader view. So I don't have to be very narrow. Maybe your organization set up that you can be a total specialist in that, but it also allows you to fill in maybe a gap you didn't have before. Fills that, and the guiding nature of this, and most importantly, having that context and having that understanding of where you need to get to, it really opens up opportunities that maybe in the past were a technical barrier for some folks.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think, like, if I am someone in QA, for example, and all across my org now, people are spinning up, the AI coding assistants, that they might have an agent that does some of this stuff, but that's a QA agent that person that's not QA thinks a QA agent is, and those prompts, the structure, the methodology of years of experience, it's just being assumed by somebody who's not in that role. And I think that's when somebody can sort of, manage an org-wide implementation of what a QA agent is. They can become the SME of that. They can then figure out and manage that across the business and how that would look. I think that's really valuable. And there's a fear of the leap, but I think it's definitely worthwhile to think about organizations as they get prepared for what's next. So then as a user, that's great. So as leaders, what should leaders think about as they staff their businesses, they think about their type of user roles they're recruiting for? What should they think about as they, develop their business?
I think that leaders can, convey that there's buy-in to this approach and expectation, and that transparency that learning is expected, and that while there are governance policies, I expect you to go push and maybe have some failures of some experience that didn't plan out. So I think leadership, setting up that culture, it's super important. Giving the signal that this is expected, this is the norm, and giving the teams the foundational trainings that help them understand the technology that is in play here. But the biggest thing is, leadership can set up the environment, set the goals appropriately, and give that room for people to experiment.
Yeah, I really like that, because you could pay a bunch of money to specialist learning firms to come in and do all this work, and it'd be very focused. Like, you can't watch a video about this sort of stuff. It's all very relevant to the specific role. But building that culture, everyone's level of knowledge of this comes up as a business, and it helps everybody out. I like that.
Yeah. And I think the other part of this is making sure the culture is such that it's not about a technology, but rather getting your experts in your business to actually ask the question, what is the business problem? And then once I truly understand what the business problem is, how I'm going to measure it, very, very core things that we've done for years, and then start asking how can I apply, how could AI actually help solve that business problem or transform that? So it's not just apply. I think maybe there's sometimes I see this misguided where it's AI is just a simple automation. You're missing the total value. It's actually about how could AI actually transform that? And so that's the other part of leadership, is setting up that expectation of not implementing the tool, but rather how can you actually transform this business process or business program with the implementation or with the use of the new technology.
Yeah, I think that's really good. It's like defining what, not just the problem, might you say, but the maturity of how you would, let's go from like assistant to one person doing one thing at one time, maybe asking some search, to then getting an agent to do a thing, or then saying, hey, I want you to go and complete this task and come back with a complete outcome, and a bunch of agents have gone and spun this up. What does that maturity model look like for the organization, and how would they think about that? So yeah, that's great. Well, thanks, Brian. I really appreciate taking the time and of course sharing your insights. So staying ahead of the AI evolution is not just trying to predict every change. It's about building a mindset and a culture that adapts as technology grows. So thank you for everyone who's been watching this episode of VibeCode. And we hope you'll join us for the next conversation as we explore how leaders can assess readiness, governance, and ethical alignment before scaling their AI initiatives, including topics like data ownership, transparency, and IP integrity.